guys, welcome back to the Pineapple Party Podcast. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Pineapple Party Podcast. My name is Jensen, I'm your host, and today we have a very, very special guest coming all the way from Qatar, Josie Al-Suwaidi. Josie, how are you doing?
I'm going to do my own intro.
Yeah,
Hello there,
go for it.
beautiful people of the internet. My name is Josie Al-Suwaidi. It's good to be here. Thank you for having me, Jensen.
Wonderful, that's perfect. Yeah, I think we've talked a little bit before, and I think at that time I was still living in Qatar. For those of you
Mm-hmm.
that don't know, I used to live in Qatar for about 12 years, and especially as I started driving to school on my own, I think you did a lot of the morning shows. So eventually we got in touch, and when I thought about bringing back the podcast, I wanted to interview people I found interesting or people that I just want to get to talk to. And there's a reason why you're on episode 2. I mean, you're on the very top of my list, so it's a pleasure to have you here today.
Well, I appreciate that so much. So
No
thank you for
worries.
having
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Well, if you should we just jump right in or
Yeah, let's get into it.
perfect. So, well, obviously I talked about, hearing you on the radio show in the morning. How did your career essentially come about? Like, how did you get involved with radio hosting and broadcasting?
That's a funny question for me whenever people ask
Okay.
because my answer is always I never saw myself in this career. And when I was in uni and everything, I had nothing to do with the radio. I actually studied film.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it's quite a jump. I always thought it was interesting growing up, but it just never was something I saw myself actually doing
Right.
at all. But when I moved back to Qatar, when I finished studying in the UK, my brother he was working in a TV station, so I wanted to go there as well.
Okay.
Um, but I had an interview, but I had an issue with some of my papers, so I wasn't able to go after that opportunity. And after like a year of doing nothing during COVID, my brother came up to me one day and he was like, "Hey Joe, what do you think about the radio?" And I'm
Right.
like, "I think it's fine, but why are you asking me?" Because at the time he had joined as a part timer along with one of our friends, and we used to all hang out together a lot.
Right.
So they were like, "Joe, come on, like join us at the radio. Like, what do you have to lose?" And I
Yeah.
was like, "I don't know. Like, it's not really my thing." At the time, like I said, I came out of a film degree and I was doing YouTube. So I was like, "I don't really know if this is my thing, you know?" Like, I told my brother this was more your thing. You got into radio at the uni and all that stuff. You got
Yeah.
involved, but I was really skeptical about it, but they kept pushing me. They're like, what do you have to lose really? Like, just come in for an interview, a voice test, and meet the people there and see what's up." So eventually, after like weeks of them telling me like, just join, just join. So
Just
I was like,
pushing
okay,
you.
fine.
Yeah.
So I was like, fine, set up the interview and we'll see what happens, where we go from there. So I remember it was December 1st of 2020. I went in for
Okay.
my interview, and I was pretty nervous because doing YouTube and doing radio, it's similar, but it's like kind of different.
Yes.
So I was like, I don't know what to expect. Did a voice test and all these things. I waited a month and then I thought I didn't get the job. But then they contacted me and they were like, "Hey, we'd like you to start." So I was like, "Okay, let's go. I'm not doing anything with my time, so let's get into it."
Well,
And that's
evidently
how it
they made the right
started.
choice.
Yeah, yeah. Started off as a producer.
Hmm.
So for half a year, I was doing a lot of behind the scenes work, creating content for the hosts and looking up events and all these things, bringing in people for interviews, which was great. I got to meet a lot of people. So that was cool. And then summer of 2021 is when they were like, our hosts were either getting sick or they were traveling, and we pretty much had nobody at the radio at the time.
Right.
And my boss was like, "Josie, it's your time to shine, girl. Time to go on air. And I was like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, it really just took off from there.
Right. So it's essentially just circumstantial because you came out of uni with a
Yeah.
film degree,
Yeah.
and was your plan, if the circumstances didn't mean that you ended up in radio, was your perfect plan to get into the film industry and
Yeah.
grow from there?
Yeah, pretty much.
Right. Okay. Oh wow, that's very interesting. And I mean, evidently they
Yeah.
picked the right person because I've heard you on the radio. You do a fantastic job every time.
I
Um,
appreciate that.
yeah. Okay. Well, what did you like so much about producing? Because you brought up producing. So can you talk to me about what it is essentially, and what do you like about it? What do you not like about it?
Producing for the radio essentially is we have a running order, which is basically what goes on in the program.
Okay.
Um, if we have like interviews or segments, we have to, set them for a certain time limits as well. So a lot of math goes into that,
Yeah.
which not my thing. So I can say that's one thing I didn't like about it.
All right.
But like I said, it's essentially creating content for the hosts. It's to ease their job. So all they have to focus on is entertaining the audience and pretty much being them, playing their music, focusing on requests and whatnot. So
Right.
that's what we wanted them to focus on as producers. So all the grunt work basically goes to us. Like I said, if there's events, then we have to reach out to certain organizations and people, and we're like, hey, we'd like to bring you on for an interview. Um, if something essentially like goes wrong on air, right?
Right.
So let's say um, there's dead air. Like let's say the host didn't push the button on the mixer for the next song to go on straight away, and
Right.
there's like silence, right? So we kind of like have to instead of them panicking, we panic for them basically, and we deal with that kind of stuff. Um, I still do a little producing work on the side, but I'm mainly focused as a host right now. I would say one good thing I really liked about it was the amount of people I was able to get in contact with. For example, there's this TikToker, Maze Vault.
Okay.
So at one point, she visited Qatar. I think it was during Ajal or something like that. She was visiting Qatar. So we were able to get a hold of her and get her onto the radio and all these things. So it's really meeting people is like the best
Right.
part of being a
Right. And hearing how you talk about it with the planning out the math behind it, all the behind the scenes
producer.
work, you guys are essentially the curators, right? You guys are essentially
Yeah,
planning out what is the program and how to fit
yeah,
the ads and all that little every little thing is
yeah.
up to the hands of the producers essentially.
Yeah. Well, not the ads, but everything else. Yeah. It's up to
Okay.
us.
Yes. Okay. And time blocking especially.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Pretty.
Okay. So you got to play both worlds essentially. You got to be behind the scenes, and now as a host, you get to be live on air. Well, there isn't a face to it, I suppose, because radios
Yeah.
mainly consume audio, but you would be on stage, metaphorically, so to speak.
Metaphorically, yeah.
Yeah,
The radio is my.
that's amazing. Um, well, when you were introducing how you got into radio, you talked about how your plan was always to get into film, and that
Mm-hmm.
you did start off posting YouTube videos and creating YouTube content, which is, although I feel, although similar to radio hosting, it's still very different. So
Yes, very different.
what about it do you feel is different, going from YouTube to then being behind a mic on a radio show?
The main difference, and the one that I struggled with for a while, was finding my quote unquote radio voice, right?
Okay.
So if you hear me on the radio and then you see my YouTube channel, I sound completely different.
Right.
Completely different. Because at the time when I started my YouTube, I was in university and it was something I wanted to try since I was a kid. And I was like, I'm in university. I'm studying film. This will help me with editing and picking up things that I wouldn't have picked up
Yeah, you
before.
get to
So I was like, let me
practice.
let me give it a try.
Yeah.
So I did that for a while. Um, and yeah, the way I sound in my YouTube videos is the way I sound in my everyday life. How I
Right.
talk to my friends, the exact same energy I have with my friends and family is what I put onto my YouTube channel because I didn't know about creating a whole persona and a whole thing for social media, right? I didn't know about
Yes.
that back then. When I joined the radio, the reason they kept me as a producer and kind of trained me very slowly into becoming a host was
Right.
because they wanted to help me find the right voice to put onto the radio. So, like how
Right.
I'm speaking to you now, kind of my radio persona.
Okay. That's fair.
um, I would say like my voice before in my YouTube videos was a bit higher pitched, and now I go for like a bit more deeper, calmer type voice.
Right, I understand.
So, but finding that balance was very difficult for me. It took a lot of trial and error. Um, I don't like listening to my old recordings because I just don't like the way I sound back then. But I think now it's fine. But I would say one big similarity that they both have is I'm talking to a camera just the same way I'm talking into a mic. Nobody's talking back to me. Nobody can see me.
Right.
But so the talking part I think is like so similar, but the biggest difference for me was the voice and the persona. It was very hard to curate that for radio.
And like fine tune it for radio
Mhm,
broadcasting,
mhm.
right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
and what I genuinely appreciate is um, how articulate you are with explaining everything because I have, although I love radio and I love listening to radio, and as a musician now,
Hmm.
I was hugely inspired by radio when I was very young and I could barely speak English, but English songs would come on and I just murmur or try to emulate the sounds that I heard. Um,
Yeah,
but you break it down in a way that's very easy to understand, and it's like bite-sized pieces that okay,
I
like
hope so.
no, you're doing amazing, and I really appreciate it, right? Like,
I
okay, this
appreciate
is what producing is, this is what hosting is, these are the
it. Hmm.
differences, and this is how they gel together, you know?
Yeah.
So I really do appreciate it. And one thing I found really interesting that you brought up is, with your YouTube channel, it really is like a vlog style thing where
Mm,
what you see is what you get,
pretty
you know?
much.
Exactly. It's like, because I used to vlog as well, and it's like, the viewer, they feel like they're friends with you because they just see you
Mm,
as you are.
yeah.
But when you talk about moving into radio, you had to fine tune your not only your voice, but you have to fine tune a persona for radio because
Yeah.
as much as we love to just be ourselves when it's time to, broadcast to millions of people in Qatar, I'm
Hmm.
guessing
Hmm.
it's not the most appropriate to just be yourself, correct?
No, no, there's a lot of things that you can't do and can't say on air that you would be
Yeah.
able to do in a YouTube video, right?
Yeah.
Um, Especially considering we are the only um, government run English station.
Right.
A lot of things have to be fine tuned, carefully curated. Um, in comparison to like YouTube, there's very little room for slip ups. Very little.
Especially because you're live and on air.
Yeah.
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 I would love to get to QBS as a radio channel and what it is and all that later for sure. Um, but what are your thoughts on? I think especially now because TikTok and other social media, it is so widely accessible. Click of
Hmm.
a button, download it off the Play Store or the Apple Store. Everyone can
Yeah.
can create an account and post on it. So what are your thoughts on creating, like you said, creating a persona for social media? Do you see it as a good thing? Do you see it as a bad thing?
It's a mix of both, I would say,
Yeah,
right? Because the any career, especially in media, comes with its pros and cons, right? For
very much so.
example, um, yeah, to be an influencer, to work in media, to be a radio host or whatever, you have to have this like carefully curated personality that you put on for people. Because when you present things, for example, when influencers get ads, right? They're not
Yes.
just gonna be like, yeah, this is good, go buy it. You know,
Exactly.
they have to put on like, oh my God, this a product is amazing. This is
Yep.
why you should buy it. It's done wonders for me. They all have that like, upbeatness,
Yes.
if it makes
That
sense, right?
energy to present and to make it
Energy, yeah,
exciting. Yes.
yeah. So you have to have that. That is like key. I think if you were to try and have a career out of social media without having that, it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And firsthand, I would know firsthand because, like I said, when I did YouTube, these are things I did not know. Nobody taught me. Nobody told me. I didn't know a lot of YouTubers or influencers back then.
Right.
It was like very hard to grow my channel. And then, once I started doing makeup videos, I started learning, okay, I need to be a certain way and whatever. Um, so yeah, if you don't have that kind of like carefully curated persona, it's hard to go anywhere. But I would say a downside to that is one of them would be parasocial relationships.
Yes.
That with YouTube vlogs and stuff, people feel like they're your friends. They feel like they know you.
Mm-hmm.
But then comes parasocial relationships where they think they know you,
Exactly.
but they really don't. And same thing happens in radio with me. One time, a listener was getting a little aggro with trying to contact me outside of the radio,
Oh
and I
wow.
had to put
Okay.
a stop to that. Yeah, I had to put a stop to that because I'm like, yo, at the end of the day, you do not know me. You know what I'm saying? I am just a voice you hear on the radio.
Exactly.
Yeah, you like my work, you like my playlist, and I appreciate that, but that's all this is. I'm
Yeah.
I'm doing a job at the end of the day. Um, Another downside would still on they think they know you. Um, they think they know your whole personality and who you are as a person. So they would think that what you're posting is the truth.
Right.
For example, if I post that I'm traveling all the time, they think that, oh, she lives such a great life that she travels all the time. When the reality behind that is actually really different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think
And
anything in the media has those pros and cons.
right. Yeah, and the thing with parasocial relationships as well is the people on the other end, they
Mm-hmm.
have a set of expectations that they would apply onto you, and you
Oh,
would
for
have
sure.
no idea because you're like, okay, my job is I'm a radio host. I show up to work, I clock in.
Mm-hmm.
This is what the program that has been curated. I play the music, and good day at work. I had fun. I go home. But then
Yeah,
people start to think, oh my God, that's Josie, that's my friend. I hear her voice every
yeah, yeah,
day.
yeah,
And then they have these expectations, right? Like, oh, do you not know
for
me?
sure.
You know?
For
Yeah.
I would say I experienced that one time. I was hosting with DJ Chloe, and I was pausing for the call to prayer. So I said,
Yes.
unfortunately, we're cutting the song, but we are now pausing for the call to prayer. And
Right.
someone took that in a completely different way, as if I was saying, unfortunately, we have to pause now for the call to prayer, which is completely
Oh,
not
right.
it.
I
So they have
understand.
these expectations like, why would you say that? I didn't expect this of you. And they're like, no, 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 that is not what I meant.
Yeah,
Fortunately for the song.
exactly.
But yeah.
Because I'm guessing what happened is they associated the word unfortunate with call to
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
prayer, and they made an
Yeah,
assumption. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's unfortunate. And then you mentioned, when there was a situation where, this parasocial relationship went out of control.
Mm-hmm.
If you're
Yeah, it was
comfortable,
reaching there. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, would you mind talking about what happened? And you can give as much detail or as little detail as you want.
Yeah, I don't mind. So we have a lot of regular listeners, right?
Yes.
Some of them texted more than others. Um, and because of that, also we have a WhatsApp number that we tend to reply to. We save like people's details on it, so we know who is texting,
Oh, wow.
and
Okay.
yeah, who's requesting for what and who's texting. So it kind of adds on to the parasocial relationship, right?
Yeah.
to the point where I had this one listener. They tell us about their days. They send us pictures of their pets, their kids, what
That's
they're
quite sweet.
eating, and all these things. Which is like, we appreciate that you love us so much that you want us to know these things. Um, I try not to respond too much. I just say thank you. Your song's coming up. I
Yeah.
try to keep it as strict and professional as possible.
You make
But
sure the
even then,
boundary is very clear, right?
yeah, I'm very
Yes.
big on boundaries. But even then, sometimes people tend to read into it a wrong way, and you can't control that. So I had this one listener that really wanted to get in contact with me outside of the radio, outside of our WhatsApp number.
Okay.
Because, like I said, they think they know you,
Yes.
right? So they try to get to you in any way possible, whether it's like commenting on your Instagram, and if you reply to them, it gives them. That's why I try not to reply to comments on my Instagrams
Yeah, I understand.
as much as possible, because it gives them a false sense of hope, and I don't like to do that to people. Otherwise they'll be like, oh, she led me on, right?
Yeah.
When that's not the case, I'm just doing my job.
Yeah. And then they're like, "Oh my
um
god, girl, let's go to the cinema," you know.
no, thank you. But yeah, that listener was doing exactly that,
Right.
which is why I also stopped posting where I am when I'm there. I'll post
And
once I
after.
leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because this one listener was like, if I posted, for example, during the food festival, right? If I
Yes.
posted at the food festival, this listener would be like, "I'm at the food festival. Like, let's link up." And I'm like,
Right.
"No, thank you, because
Yeah.
I don't know you."
Yeah.
Stranger danger.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, and they just became a little too insistent on like, please reply to me on Instagram. I really want to get to know you more and all these things. Um, and it got to a point where it did concern me a little bit,
Right.
because they were saying a few things that I was like, yo,
Like back off,
for
right?
example,
Yeah.
like, yeah, it was a little intense for me. And I was like, I had to unfortunately block this person from my social media, but it was for my safety.
Right. I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were, I think, as well as because genuinely, if they are regular listeners, they would most probably hear you every time they get into the car.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if they're commuting to
Like,
work back and forth, it's an hour or two minimum,
mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think it gets to a point where they assume that the regularity of how often they hear you, and
Hear you, yes.
it becomes like this thing where it's like, oh my god, we're besties, like let's go to the cinema, let's meet, like I haven't
Yeah,
heard from you
yeah,
in so long, and you're like, well, I never wanted you to hear from me ever,
yeah.
and they would get
Basically.
comfortably uncomfortably close, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing because I took a unit last year in uni where we learned about parasocial relationships as well, and this
Mm-hmm.
is a genuine problem that no one really addresses because I think people always see like, oh wow, you're always traveling, you have it so good. What do you have to complain
Yeah,
about?
yeah, yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
yeah, exactly. Like,
Yeah,
for when it comes to like influencers, or they'll be like, "Oh, all you have to do is promote a product and travel. So why are you complaining about your
yeah,
job being hard?" But it is hard. It's not easy.
yeah,
And the main reason I think is keeping up this persona. It can be very, very draining.
right,
That's why as hosts we have to have regular holidays, because we need to retune ourselves and
right,
remind ourselves that, hey, I'm not just this personality on air or on YouTube. I'm still a human.
exactly. And like to regulate yourself and just to take a
Yeah.
breather every now and then.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think because you guys are really at the forefront of like you're on the radio and I'm guessing an actor would be in front of the camera all the time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
There is such a high expectation for you to be perfect nonstop. Soon as you
Yes.
get to work, you cannot make a mistake because if you make a mistake,
Yeah, as
the whole
soon as that
nation
mic
hears it.
on,
Yeah,
like I said, very little, if any,
yeah,
room for slip up. Can't
right.
do that.
And then that okay, then my question is what is the the process of or like the cleanup if someone is to slip up on air? Of course, we're not
We
saying big mistake. We're not saying
Yeah, yeah.
someone drops the f bomb on air, but if someone just
It's
stumbles over their
happened
word,
though.
oh really?
Not from me though, not from me.
Okay, then you gotta
But
spill. Okay,
it does happen.
what was the
For
yeah? What was the
example,
cleanup when that
sometimes we'll
happened?
play a song sometimes we'll play a song that's like from the 2000s, right? And we only have one person that really cleans up all our songs and does all our imaging. So
Right,
it's not an easy job for him either, right?
right.
Things tend to slip through through the cracks sometimes, and it's fine. It happens. He's human.
Mm-hmm.
We just, once it happens, we tell him, hey, this song, by the way, is not clean. You might want to look into
Might want
that.
to double
Uh,
check.
yeah, yeah. So when it does happen, we actually don't acknowledge it at all.
Okay.
We just keep it pushing. For example, one time I was playing a Ja Rule and Ashanti song back from the 2000s, and 2000s were so uncensored
Mm-hmm.
with what rappers were saying.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? So I didn't think much of it. I should have listened to the song beforehand when I was creating my playlist. So that was a slip up on my end. I didn't. I thought it was, oh, we play the song. I've heard this song on the radio before, so it should be
Right.
good to go. And then I get into the booth, play the song, and then I'm like, oh God, oh God. There's not much I can do at that point because
Yeah.
if I were to fade it out and put on another song, that's when the listener is actually going to really acknowledge, like, hey,
It draws
that
attention
wasn't,
to it.
yeah, it draws attention to it. So,
Yeah.
um, for example, when that happened to me and I played the Ashanti and Ja Rule song, my friend texted me, I heard that. I said, no, you didn't. I said, keep it pushing. You
It's
didn't
a
hear
figment
anything.
of your imagination.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So we just kind of don't acknowledge it at all,
Okay.
just to pass it. And you'll notice a lot of listeners, they even if they do notice, they don't point it out.
Yeah.
They they probably just find it funny, have a little giggle. But
Yeah.
for us, it's a panic mode. But we're like, just gotta keep going. We're already here.
Because I guess you
Uh,
can't like go on air and go, oh God, guys, that's not what it is, you know?
no, no, no,
Yeah.
at all. It's the same thing if somebody has a slip up with their words, right?
Right.
Um, Not to put my brother on blast, but because he's the only example that comes to my mind, really, where it's happened to him a few times, where he might have accidentally cussed on air or something.
Fair
Same
enough.
thing. You don't acknowledge it, you keep going.
Yeah.
You keep going.
And if there is a situation where there's two of you guys on air, so you guys can play, um, you know, off each other, right? You can talk back and forth,
Yeah.
have a conversation. If one of your coworkers is to cuss, how hard is it to not just blurt out laughing, and what do you do to, of course,
So
keep it
hard.
pushing?
So hard.
Right.
Because even when my brother, like, because he does the sports show on QBS,
Right.
so when I did hear his slip ups, I was like, yo, can't do that.
Yeah.
Um, I think one time it happened because my brother had this show during the summer
Okay.
called the Break Room with another host, Ahmed Al Kuwari, where they essentially
Yes.
they break people from the radio to interview in the first hour, second hour they get someone from outside. So it did happen once when all three of us were in the booth. Now, mind you, I said we're all friends. We've known each other since university.
Exactly.
So when it happens, me and Ahmed just look at each other like, try not just don't laugh.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't keep going. Don't laugh.
Yeah.
Anyway, and we're like, okay, on to the point that you were making. So this is how I feel about it.
Right.
Just
Okay.
breeze through it as much as possible.
So reestablish the conversation and just
Yeah, yeah.
pretend it really never happened.
It never happened. And then it'll leave the listener thinking like, is this the Mandela effect? Like, I thought I heard him say
Yeah.
that, but maybe I didn't.
Just gaslight the listeners into thinking it never happened.
I didn't want to say it like that, but
Yeah.
basically just gaslight.
Honestly though, it is the professional move, right? Because you don't want
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
like QBS being such a wide. I mean, like you said, it is the one government backed English radio channel. So there would be
Yeah.
people from all age ranges listening, and you don't exactly want to,
Yeah.
express, the f bombs and everything out.
Yeah, yeah. And we really do have a really young audience.
Yes.
So, yeah, we just don't pay attention to it. Don't bring attention to it.
Yeah.
Just keep going.
Yeah. And by the way, I do know what show you're talking about with your brother and Ahmed, because from time to time, especially when I'm driving, if it's in the evening or whatever, I'll hear them talk about sports news and like football
Mhm.
news and all that stuff. So the nostalgia is really hitting me right now, but it's phenomenal.
The nostalgia is nostalgiaing.
Yeah, honestly, because I mean, I go back to visit every now and then
Hmm.
speaking of which, I'll be going back. I'm very excited to go back actually in about 2 weeks time to see my family for Christmas, and then I'll be back here in Malaysia again to do uni, and yeah, so really do miss Qatar. Um, Speaking of which, what is the QBS or the Qatar Broadcasting System? I'm guessing station.
Broadcasting station, yeah.
Okay, forgive me. Yeah. So how did it? Well, what is it honestly, and how did it come to be? And as you said, it is the number one. What it is the only one
Yeah.
government backed English.
The only English government run station in the
Yeah.
country. So that's what it is. It's been around since the 1950s. I would
Wow.
say three years ago we celebrated 50 years.
Oh wow!
No,
Congratulations.
yeah, 2 years ago. Sorry, two
Two
years
years
ago
ago.
we
Okay.
celebrated 50 years. Around this time, December. So we're probably in our 52nd year now.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, we've been around for a very long time. Actually, how it came about is back in the day, you know how the radio is now, like it runs all day.
Yes.
There's always programs, there's always music running all day.
On loop.
That's not how it actually started. They
Okay.
would have programs or music up until a certain time, and then it was just, I guess, dead air
Right.
until the next morning when it would start and then it would stop again. Um, so it's very interesting to see how it developed from, a lot of dead air, barely any programs, music, and all that stuff to
Right.
what it is now, where it's a 24-hour station.
Yes.
Anytime you tune into the radio, there's a program, there's music going, there's always something to listen to. But back then, nothing.
So was it
I
similar to
think they
how?
only broadcasted for 1 hour a day back then, actually. I
Really?
could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was like an hour or two a day. That's it.
If you miss it, you miss it.
If you missed it, you missed it.
Right. So would this be similar then to how television used to work back in the day? Because I remember when I grew up, if you turn on the TV past 9, you just see
Yeah, there was
color
like nothing
bars.
on. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it
this
would be
will.
like that.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Um. Oh wow, yeah, it is very interesting because genuinely now, like if I would be driving at like 1 in the morning, there would be
Hmm.
music playing, and it's the same thing in
Yeah.
Malaysia because if I come back late, or if I go see my friends and I'm driving back around midnight, they would have EDM playing, which I find very fitting.
For 1 a.m., yeah.
It's just like rave music going nonstop, one
Hmm.
after the other. Um, yeah, wow, okay, that's very interesting. And continuing this topic on how the radio came to be, what is the process of, obviously, because how we consume, how me as an audience, I consume radio, it's just I get into the car, turn on the radio, and boom, there it is. But
Hmm.
can you describe the process of how you guys get from a studio to us as listeners in the car? Because I know you talked about how producing is planning out, time blocking, and then you have the hosting where you go on live. But how does all of that translate to us receiving um, the information in our cars?
That's actually a very interesting question that I never actually thought about.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I never actually thought about that. And I guess it's interesting because I don't hear it from your guys' point of view, right?
Right.
My family does, and they always tell me that, oh, it was a great show, maybe play this next time or do that. But I never actually thought about like how it fully translates to
Right.
the
From
listener.
your workplace to
Yeah,
everyone that's consuming the media.
yeah. I
Right.
never actually thought about it. I don't think I have an answer for that.
No, no, you're good. You're good. You're good. You're good. No, because I've been wondering for quite some time as well. Because obviously with
Mm-hmm.
film, we know like you shoot it, then it goes through many people editing and
Mm-hmm.
cutting and stitching the clips together, and eventually you post it or whatever. And with YouTube, it's even
Yeah.
easier, right? You download Adobe Premiere Pro or whatever it is, or like some people, which is definitely not me, you pirate it so you don't have to pay, and then you upload it onto YouTube. But
Yeah.
with radio, because I feel like it's not been covered enough how the process of translation really is. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people is aware of how, like obviously we know it's signals, but how it goes from this fixed building into then being translated live into the cars of everybody else that's tuned in,
Yeah.
you know? Well,
That's probably why I thought about it before.
yeah, and
Because there isn't
and
a discussion around it, really.
no, no one has really talked about it. No one, I don't really see anyone on YouTube talking about it. And obviously, you're not going out to meet up with your friends for coffee and they're like, "So, how do the signals work?" No one's exactly bringing it
Yeah.
up. Well, that's very interesting. We can definitely save that for another day, and I'm gonna do a lot more research because I'm very curious as well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, well, I think we covered a lot about, you know, your how you got started into radio, how it wasn't really a part of the plan, but because of your
Mm-hmm.
brother and your friends, you got involved and you started with producing, correct?
Yeah.
And eventually, moved into radio hosting, which is, I'm assuming the main thing you're doing now, where
Yeah.
with a side of producing still.
Yeah.
Right. And we talked about, we covered what is the Qatar broadcasting station, how it is the one and only government backed English broadcasting station. I think that is why I would hear like um, country music. I remember like every Friday when me and my family we would drive down because I stayed in Al Khor. So we would drive down to Doha for like a
No way.
family lunch. Yeah.
I grew up in L4.
For real?
For real.
Did you go to school in Alcor?
Yeah, I've been to a few schools in L4.
Oh, but the independent schools or like international schools?
Both. Both.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I spent so I grew up in Doha and then I jumped around a few schools and then about 5 years in we just moved up north to Alcor and been there ever since. Yeah, very interesting place. But we would
Cool.
make the drive down to Doha for like a
Mm.
family lunch every week and there'd just
Yeah,
be like
yeah.
country music playing.
Yeah, we because we are, like I said, we are the only English station. We have to play everything under the sun, whether
Yeah.
or not we like it, right? Like I'm not a huge country fan, but we have to play it because there
Don't
are
worry, I'm
listeners
not
who
either. Yeah. But exactly, I think that's why I finally understood because I was like, why don't they just start their own thing? Like Qatar country broadcast, I don't know, like start their own country channel? But then
yeah,
it would
yeah.
be country, and then another day it would be like Travis Scott. So I'm like,
Yeah.
it didn't,
Yeah, we
it
have
didn't
to
occur
play
to me.
everything that we can. Rock
Right.
music, hip hop, pop, country, folk, anything that
Oh,
like
wow.
really isn't English, we try to play as much as possible.
To accommodate for everyone, essentially.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's why we have also separate programs. Like, for example, this year I started my K Wave,
Okay.
which is basically everything Korean
Oh,
from
K-pop,
K-pop,
K-R&B.
K R&B, hip hop. alternative, anything Korean, because that's my forte as a massive K-pop fan.
All right.
They gave me the show to, so other K-pop fans can listen in, right?
Yeah.
Or for example, we have Back to the 80s that Chloe does, which is full on 80s music.
Right.
Or Dance Floor, which is what Huda Walid does,
Yes.
because she loves EDM, she loves dance music.
Let's
So that's her
go.
that goes on like every Thursday night. We have Rock Radio by Haytham, Indie Mondays also by Haytham. We have like different programs for different things.
To cater for everybody,
Yeah.
essentially. Oh, that's amazing that you guys are very inclusive to all the genres. And yeah, I really appreciate it because sometimes I would hear UK stuff as well. And
Mm-hmm.
I really love UK hip hop.
Right.
So
So
yeah, so every now and then I'll hear like, oh, that's I think I'm sure Skepta's been on. I'm sure.
yeah,
Okay, can I ask you one question?
sure.
Have you guys played any Sprinter?
Sprinter, the one by Dave and Central C.
Yes.
Or yeah, we have. I
Okay,
play it a lot
okay, okay.
because
Yeah.
I love UK hip hop as well. So
Let's go. That's what I'm talking about. It's a very underrated genre that people are finally starting to give credit because of people like Dave and Sench.
yeah.
Yeah. So well, I'm very happy to hear that. Um, yeah, and going into you know underrated and like entertainment and stuff like that. What advice would you give to the people that want to pursue entertainment in Qatar?
Gotta have a lot of tough skin.
Yep.
I would say especially in Qatar because the entertainment and media sector is still growing.
Right.
It's still developing. Um, yeah, the entertainment media sector, it's still very much growing. It's still in development as we speak, and it might be this way for the next few years. So it's going to get tiring sometimes, like why can't sometimes people will think like, oh, why can't we be like Dubai, for example, that
Yeah.
have a lot going on in their entertainment sector? Or why don't we have as many events as Saudi and all these things? But you have to understand the sector is still very brand new to Qatar,
Mm.
because it's not something we put a lot of emphasis on before. We
Yeah.
put a lot of emphasis in our sports sector, in the medical sector, the business, and all these things. But media and entertainment were kind of, um,
It
you
wasn't
know,
the priority, right?
it wasn't the priority at
Yeah.
all. But since the World Cup and the preparations leading up to the World Cup with events like Ajal and, for example, everyone's favorite Torba, um, I think they started to slowly understand, hey, we actually do need more of this. I
Yes.
think especially they finally understood during the World Cup when we were able to have festivals like MDL Beast. We were able to, for example, have one of the biggest members of the biggest boy band in the world, Jungkook from
Yes.
BTS, come and perform. Um, and we were able to get our own talent out there like
Right.
Aisha and Fahad al-Kubaisi. My brother as well was, he as a musician, he got a few opportunities because of FIFA. So I
Oh,
think
that's
they started
amazing.
to really understand that this is something we need to focus on. But like I
Right.
said, it's still a growing sector, so it's going to take some time to get to where the other countries are, but it's getting there.
Right. So essentially, it's just every challenge that a pioneer would have to face, you would have to
Exactly.
face, because
Yeah.
it's such a young and such a like just started.
Yeah.
It's a very well. I'm sure it's developing quickly, but it's still very young.
Still
And
very young. It's in its infancy.
yeah, right. So,
So you have to have a lot of tough skin.
mm,
You have to, try your best to keep motivated by yourself because obviously you're going to feel like, um, I'm not getting a lot of opportunities. Maybe this,
Right.
isn't the place for me, but just hold out. Just hold out is my advice. Like it will be worth it once it gets to its height.
Right. Because essentially just, be persistent,
Yeah.
right? Be motivated and continue to do so even and I'm guessing the issue is not just a lack of opportunities. I think to add on to your point with how it's very new and entertainment is still in its infancy in Qatar, it would mean that it's also new for everyone in Qatar to take in.
Yeah, exactly.
So would you say there are any challenges, not just with the not just with the opportunities, but would you say there are challenges with, getting the people to be on your side as an influencer or as someone who is in the entertainment industry?
Yeah, a little bit
Right.
because you see Western influencers, right?
Yes.
So that is typically what people think of influencers. They think, oh, they're problematic, they're arrogant, they're
Snobby.
people tend to think twice before working with an influencer
Right.
because of the massive portrayal of the West and how influencers are there, right? Problematic, like it's problematic, arrogant, snobby, like they're not worth hiring in a sense is what
Yes.
people would think at first. But I would say, especially in Qatar, not all influencers are like that. Um, I have been lucky enough to meet a lot of influencers who do a lot of good,
Right.
so try not to put them in the box the same as the West,
Under
because
that
actually a lot of
stereotype, right?
yeah, a lot of influencers, especially in Qatar that I've met, are doing so much for the environment, sustainability, for our economy, and all these things. So yeah, it is hard being viewed as a quote unquote influencer
Yeah.
in this country.
And feel free to shout them out, by the way. Like if you want to shout out their TikTok handles or anything like that, especially if they are working towards a good cause, I think it really deserves to have a light shine on them. I mean, this
Yeah,
is a very new
there's
podcast,
so
so
many. There's so many. Literally, I would say go onto the QBS Instagram page because that's where I met all of them was
oh
through
right,
work,
okay,
QBS, and through contacting them for interviews. So a lot of that good stuff is on there. Like you can find like really cool, genuine people that actually care about good causes.
right,
So shout out to work, QBS
yeah,
Radio on Instagram.
QBS Radio, yeah, for sure, for sure, and I mean, essentially, it is a platform for, people who are working towards a good cause to just show
Hmm.
themselves and have an opportunity to voice themselves out, right?
Yeah.
Mm. Oh, that's amazing. Um, yeah, so we talked about, how because the media industry is still so new in Qatar, that opportunities are hard to come by. And of course,
Hmm.
when the neighboring country is the UAE and everyone goes to Dubai, all these influencers from the UK. I know for a fact a lot of UK influencers love going to Dubai. They love the sun, and
Hmm.
a lot of them get paid to and enjoy what Dubai has to offer, right? So
Yeah.
it it's not at all um, well, it is very common knowledge that Dubai is this big hub for influencers, but Qatar not so much as of now.
As of now. But I would say very slowly. I don't know if you know Chunks and Philly.
Oh, 100%. I grew up on UK
Yeah,
YouTube.
they
Come on.
love coming here. They
Yeah?
love it here.
Oh,
Yeah,
they've been
so
to
slowly
Qatar?
but yeah, actually Philly said in an interview that he would love to move to Qatar because of, the security that it offers,
Yeah.
um, just the morals of our society and all these things. He loves it so much that he wants to move here. So
Oh,
slowly
wow.
but surely, Qatar is gonna get there.
About to see Philly in a Land Cruiser.
Yeah.
That would be a sight to see. That's amazing.
Yeah, him and Chunks really love coming here. So very slowly but surely, Qatar will get to that level. But like I said, we are still developing a lot.
Yeah, but it is very. I'm very happy to see the steps that Qatar is taking though, because okay, when I was still back home in Malaysia when the World Cup was going on, but I was with my family. They came back to visit for the holidays, and I remember watching live, and then I see, I was like to my sister because my sister is a K-pop fan. I was like, "Isn't that the guy from BTS?" She's like, "Yeah."
Mm-hmm,
I'm
mm-hmm.
like, what is he doing there? And it's like, and he's singing and
Singing. He filmed a whole music video in Sugwagif, like if you can believe that,
really,
which was which was the Dreamers music video. Yeah,
yeah,
I
and the
think.
song is a banger as well.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
The song is genuinely a banger as well. So I was surprised, and it makes me very happy to see that Qatar is taking steps to grow this media sector, because of course everyone knows Qatar for
Yeah.
oil and gas and technology, and we have education city and all that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but now that it is taking steps to become this eventually this media and entertainment hub as well, I think is very
Yeah.
inspiring.
We
Yeah,
have to. We have to develop this because it's essential to us, especially if we want to be the tourist hub that we
yeah,
aspire to, right? It's essential. We need that media play
to
in
support.
there. We need more entertainment.
Right.
So slowly but surely.
Hmm. And can you talk to me about some examples of this entertainment events? Like you brought up, was it Torba or Ajal, which is the film festival, if
Hmm.
I'm not mistaken?
Yes, yes, Ajal.
Yeah.
Um, their biggest how would I say, the biggest reason a lot of people go to Ajal every year is for geekdom, which is like
Okay.
uh, for us, it's the biggest hub for gamers and anime lovers alike.
Oh wow. Okay.
Geek something people look forward to every year. We get people go in cosplay. It gives artists and sellers uh, the opportunity to get their names out there as artists,
Right.
and sell their own merchandise. So it's a great opportunity for everybody.
Hmm.
Also, we do a lot of, honestly, Qatar does a lot of sporting events. Like I said, we put a
Yeah.
lot into our sports industry. So
Yes.
we mostly get sporting events like upcoming. We have the AFC Asian Cup.
Yep.
Um, the F1 Grand Prix ended a couple of months ago.
In Lusail,
Um,
right?
yes. Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful.
Which, a lot of people are saying wasn't the greatest time of year to have the event for the drivers.
Yep.
But that happened. We also have a lot of, we have volleyball events coming up. Currently, we're doing, like right now, the World Arabian Horse.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, which for the first time in like 40 or 50 years, 40 years, it's being held outside of France, which, we are hosting it now.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay.
Yeah, so we have a lot of sports events.
Yeah. No, and I know that for a fact because like I am so jealous, right? Because in the family group chat, my siblings would send me photos of them just attending free events. And it's
Yeah.
like they just get in. And I'm here like, oh, I haven't seen a rugby game, I haven't seen a proper football game in a long time. And they're going like,
Hmm.
oh, this is after the World Cup. We get to see, the local Qatari clubs playing. They get to see this, they get to see
Hmm.
that. I'm like, oh, I should have booked the flight ticket sooner, honestly. I can't wait. you know?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
cosplay in Qatar, wow, okay, that's surprising though.
Yeah, geekdom is the best place for that.
Hmm,
And it happens every year. I'm a massive fan of geekdom. I love going.
wonderful.
Um, yeah, because I think our culture surrounding anime and stuff is way different from the West.
Yeah,
Like
I could see
growing
that.
up in the 90s in the West, you would have, people would have looked at you weird, like anime, like that's kind of weird, right?
Yeah,
It's the same way people viewed K-pop for a while until BTS blew up, right? If you listen
until
to
it really
K-pop, that's
became mainstream. Yeah,
kind of weird, you know?
yeah,
But I think Qatar growing up, everybody watched anime. Even if it wasn't Arabic, we all watched it, right? We all know Pokemon, Digimon.
Right. Okay.
We grew up with all of these things. So it's a big hub of nostalgia for us, especially like the grown-ups, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Geekdom is great. Love it.
And and it's just like you get to celebrate the anime that you grew up with, you know.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so that's Ajal, and what about Torba?
Torba is a farmer's market that happens again annually. Usually starts from the end of the year, so it started maybe around September, and
Okay.
then it's running until right before the weather gets extremely hot.
Oh, best time of the year.
Um,
Winters in
yeah,
Qatar.
but like I said, it's a farmer's market essentially, and it's a great way for local businesses to sell their products, especially like if they're made sustainably, like honey or certain types of clothing or whatever.
Right.
It's all in Turba,
Oh wow. Okay. So
and
people
people love it the most because you get to bring your dogs to Torba.
really.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
that's
people love
phenomenal.
taking pets there.
And just go for a walk as well, especially during winter time. You get to just
Mm-hmm,
walk
mm-hmm.
around, window shop
Yeah,
a
you
little
get to
bit.
like drink coffee with your friend, check out local businesses. So
Hmm.
it's a really great initiative.
Wow. Okay. You're making me feel like I'm missing out a lot right now. The FOMO is really hitting me right now.
I think what I'm waiting for is the drive-in cinemas to come back, though.
Please
Yeah.
tell me that's December. That's this month.
I will have to double check. I haven't heard anything about it this year,
Okay.
but I'll have to double check on that. But that's something I'm looking forward to.
That's amazing. Well, we covered, how the entertainment industry is growing in Qatar. Now I want to talk about you and specifically your preference in, music, because obviously you're a radio host. A
Yeah, it's
lot
my
of
job.
your, exactly, a big part of your job is to deal with music.
Yeah.
So, first of all, what is your favorite song if you can name one? You don't have to go all Anthony Fantano, but maybe if you just have a few, just hit me.
Right now, I am listening to a lot of Stray Kids. They're my favorite K-pop group.
Okay.
Yeah, they released an album a month ago. So I've been listening to a lot of that, but I've also been listening to a lot of like UK garage type music.
Right, the tum tum ta 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 tum ta that kind.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay, okay.
Um, my favorite song right now in that genre is "Don't Say Love" by Leanne. She's a former Little Mix member.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, "Don't Say Love."
Don't say
Obsessed
love by
with it.
Leanne. Okay.
I would say, because obviously I grew up in the 2000s and
Yes.
late 90s. So I would say lastly, one of my favorite songs is Southside by Lloyd featuring Ashanti.
Right. Okay.
Those are the top that I can think of off my head. Oh, and a lot of Kehlani. I love Kehlani.
Oh yeah, for sure. Okay, I grew up in the 2000s as well, but I think I was quite basic because mine would be like Love the Way You Lie or like Bleeding Love. Those kind of love songs that they played on the radio because that's what I grew up with. But
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
talking about UK garage, I think a lot of K-pop music, especially with New Jeans, is like heavily
Yeah,
influenced by kind of that drum and that bass
yes.
type of
They're
music, right?
bringing it back for sure.
Yeah. And I don't know, it's like I feel like they're trendsetters because they did the EDM thing for a while. If I don't know if you noticed, but I'm not super knowledgeable about K-pop, but what I do know
It's okay.
is they are popularizing this um, the drum beat that UK garage uses because before it really is just that's just English music. Or if you go to like
Yeah.
like EDM in UK would be like drum and bass or that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
But now they're putting the spotlight on this very niche genre, and they're
Mm-hmm.
magnifying it onto the world stage, right? Where you have New Jeans
Yeah.
using it in a lot of their songs, and of course, a lot of these new K-pop groups are using it now as well with new music.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is very interesting, and I think K-pop might genuinely be one of the biggest genres today.
Yeah. I mean, I've been a fan of K-pop since 2008, so it's been 16 years.
Okay.
Um, I've seen it grow from what it was back in the late 2000s to what it is now, and I always saw the potential.
Yep.
Not a lot of people believe me,
Hey, you
but
were
I was
right.
like, yo, this is some good music, and
Yeah.
it's gonna go somewhere.
Yeah.
Um, the only person who really believed me was my brother Farhan because he's a producer.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
So he's the only person in my life who actually like really gave it a shot.
Yeah.
Like, send me some K-pop songs and whatever, and I sent him like what I think is good, or the groups that I'm listening to,
Right.
and it he started to see the potential as well. Um, I got my mom into K-pop,
Sweet.
which was like the best and worst thing I ever did.
Oh, does she play it a little bit too much now, or?
She's all she plays all day is BTS. She's streaming BTS on her TV, on her iPad, on her laptop, on her phone, all simultaneously.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That is a
Yeah,
super fan right
all
there.
it took was taking her to one BTS concert, and that was it. She was hooked.
Fair enough. I mean, I definitely see the appeal though, and even though it's not exactly my type of music, I really do respect because as a performer, I know how exhausting it can be,
Hmm.
right? To
Very
jump on
exhausting.
stage, and the way I perform because I do hip hop music is I love going all out, and
Yeah.
I don't like I'm not the biggest fan of rock music, but I love the aesthetic of being a rock star and the idea of going all out and
Hmm.
really getting the crowd involved. And I think you really do see that with K-pop because with the choreography, with the singing, with how involved they get with the pyrotechnics or the
Yeah,
effects and everything, they really put meticulous and the utmost care into giving their fans that A plus experience.
for sh- for sure.
You know?
Um, Whenever I talk to, for example, Huda, right? Because like I
Mm-hmm.
said, her thing is more EDM music, general pop music. They call me the K-pop guru at QBS just because
Okay.
I know way too much about it.
Okay. Fair enough.
Um, I always tell her like the thing that would draw anybody into K-pop is simply stage performances
Right.
because they give you performances that you could never see from any Western artist.
Yeah, and you just never forget it.
Never, ever. No, no.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is one of a kind, and you know, I don't think it's any surprise that they are as big as they are today.
No, not
You
at
know,
all.
and I think even though it really isn't my type of music, I give them so much respect, and I think it is very well
Mm-hmm.
deserved because I know like I've seen shows where they go through genuinely vigorous testing, right? Like you have to be fit enough to dance and can you remember
Yeah.
choreography? And it's like a real audition process, you know, whereas
Yeah.
hip hop, I'm guessing, you know, you make a song, throw a couple gang signs, throw it on YouTube. If you get lucky, you're the next big thing.
You get like, yeah, yeah,
You
pretty
know,
much.
but for them it really is like studying for an exam. If you study hard, you get that grade, you deserve it. It's not
Yeah.
a hit and you just land a lucky shot type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what K-pop, Korean hip hop and R&B, it's pretty much the same as in the West.
Yes.
I would still say the stage performances are still slightly better
Mm-hmm.
in Korea because most of the Korean concerts I've been to are Korean rappers, R&B singers,
Right.
uh, but they have to blow up the same way Western artists do. They have to put one song out, hope that it's a hit,
It lands,
and
yeah.
they're curating stuff from there, pretty
Yeah.
much.
Okay, so the culture is more different mainly for
Mhm.
K-pop music.
Yeah, K-pop is. I would say mostly, yeah, carefully curated to the T with the media training,
Mm,
vocals, rap, dance, everything is like carefully curated.
yeah.
But with rappers and R&B singers, it's different, because a lot of them started off as like songwriters for these K-pop groups, funnily enough.
Oh, really?
Um, for example, my favorite R&B singer is Dean,
Okay.
and he wrote for groups like EXO, a lot of K-pop groups.
Okay.
He wrote for mainly SM groups. And
Right.
then in 2016, 15, around the 2010s era, he decided I'm going to release my own music,
And take it. Yeah.
and it just took off from there.
Oh, okay. Okay. Right. So a
Yeah.
lot of them started, working behind the scenes with these big groups, and then it's just like, oh, maybe I want to try take this on the road and see what happens.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow.
And
All
I
right.
think like with Korean hip hop, because they don't get that same media trading,
Yeah.
um, some people dig into their past and it's not so great, and then they get canceled. And that's where you can see the huge contrast between the two. Like they're essentially in the same industry, but it's so different.
Right. Because one is very clean cut, whereas the other is more, a little bit more do it yourself, a little bit more
Yeah,
raw in a
pretty much.
sense. Hmm. Okay. And yeah, well, thank you so much for talking to me, Josie. I really appreciate your time.
No
Um,
worries. Thank you for having me.
yeah, not a problem at all. It's honestly a pleasure and a privilege. Before we close this podcast episode, do you have any? What are your future career aspirations? And do you have a concluding message for, um, although a very small audience because it's a very new podcast? Do you have any message for the people watching?
um, I would say whatever you're doing, just keep going with it, because you literally will never know where you're going to end up.
Yeah.
Um, I My whole dream was to be a script writer and then to become a producer and maybe a director one day. And now I'm in the radio, which I never thought I would do, but it turned out to be one of the best decisions of my life. Um, I love to talk and I love music,
Mm-hmm.
so I get to do that for a living. Um, yeah, so whatever you're doing, if you ever have doubts, just be consistent, be persistent. You literally never know what door is going to open for you at any given moment. So don't close the door on yourself.
Right. Be open and actually give yourself the opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. As for like future career aspirations, I really don't know. I am just going where the wind takes me at this point.
You know what? That's the fun thing about life, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Josie, thank you so much for giving me your time and speaking with me. I think we had a very good conversation talking about how you started with radio, what the radio scene is like in Qatar, what the entertainment scene is like in Qatar, and of course we got to talk, and I got to learn a little bit more about K-pop, which I do appreciate. So thank you very
Always here
much.
to educate.
Hell yeah, let's do it. Yeah. Um, Thank you very much. Do you still have any messages or anything you would like to add on?
Hit me up on my socials.
Let's
It's at
go.
just Josie 97. So
But
it's a
no
good time.
parasocial interactions, please.
No, please.
Yep, we
Let's keep
got
it.
that established.
We need boundaries.
Yes, I definitely agree. Well, thank you so much, Josie. And yes, this has been the Pineapple Party podcast episode with Josie Al-Suwaidi. Thank you guys for tuning in. Have a wonderful day. Again, I will drop, Josie, I'll drop your socials down in the bio as well. And do subscribe, like this video, share this video. Do all of that. I don't need to explain any further. Thank you very much, guys. Yeah, have a wonderful one.